Hey everyone, thanks for joining me here today. Sorry we're getting just a couple minutes late here, but we're really excited about this webinar here today. So first, I just want to welcome you to this webinar hosted by Travefy Academy with our featured guest, Pollyanna, who will be chatting with us today about inbound marketing and SEO, which I'm really excited for, and I know a lot of you are as well. You've expressed so much interest, so we're excited for this. But to give you a quick plug on what Travefy Academy is and kind of what to expect on today's webinar. So at Travefy, we get the opportunity to work with all kinds of amazing travel advisors just from all around the world. So with that, we get to learn, about what travel professionals are doing to build their businesses. So what we wanted to do was start sharing these stories through Travefy Academy. So that's kind of what you're going to see here today. So if this is your first webinar with the Travefy Academy, that's kind of what you'll expect. So we're really going to talk about ways to help your business. So we're really excited. So this educational webinar today is going to be a lot of fun. And our hope for Travefy Academy is really just to become a resource for travel advisors, from a wide range of perspective and different experience levels. So that's kind of what you'll see here today and in the future and from previous ones. But with all that being said, let's just dive in here. So first, to introduce ourselves. So I'm Stephanie, and I'm the community outreach and user support here at Travefy. But we also have a very special guest, Pollyanna, who I'm really excited to introduce to. And I do want to mention before I introduce Pollyanna that you can also use that question box. There's a question area where you can ask questions throughout the webinar. So if you think of something, definitely put it in there. We will wait till the end to go over questions, but put those in, and then I'll be looking at those at the end here once we get into that section. Also, we are recording this, so it's important if you do have to drop off, no worries. After this, you'll receive an email and you'll get the link to the recording. So if you also have colleagues or friends who are missing it, no worries, you can share with them. So we will be recording this whole thing. So now I want to introduce Pollyanna, which is super exciting. So I just want to say, first of all, thanks again for being here. This is for, working with us to offer your expertise to everyone here today. But to tell you a little bit more about Pollyanna, is she's the owner and director of Itinerary, which I said that right, correct? Itinerary.
Yeah.
Yes, travel. Such a fun name. And I know there's a cool backstory of what it means to about it as well. But it's an incoming travel agency in Brazil, which creates purposeful and responsible itineraries to the country for travelers from around the world. So for 11 years prior to and during her transition into the travel industry, Pollyanna's worked in digital marketing and a multinational agency, a large internet company, and small consultancies. So specifically with SEO and inbound marketing. So that's why she's here today talking to us. She knows her stuff. So this is really exciting. So despite, her dive into the wonderful world of travel, she continues to be just so passionate about digital marketing. And she continues to lecture on this subject. So like I said, we're going to hear good stuff, and you're used to teaching people. So this will be really great. And then I know you have a worksheet at the end that we'll talk about that you'll hand out to everyone too. So thanks again for being here. This is really exciting.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was a great introduction. I'm excited to be here too. Yeah, I think you touched upon everything.
Yeah, I know.
I don't need to say much more to introduce myself.
Yeah, that's the best part. Just have someone. We'll brag for you because you're awesome, and so we're really excited to jump in here. But so to tell you what we're going to do next, though, so Pollyanna already knows kind of what we're doing. For all the rest of the audience on here, what we're going to do is we've set up we formulated some questions for Pollyanna, and so we're going to kind of have a little bit of a conversation, but also work on certain different topics so that we inbound and SEO has so many different directions you can go. So we're really going to try to hone in. So I'm going to start off by asking you questions. So the first question I have is the most basic, is what is SEO in inbound marketing, and why should a travel advisor care about this for their business?
Sure. So starting with SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Essentially, it's how to get found on Google without having to pay for ads. So in SEO, we talk about how visits that come through Google are organic when you use strategies for SEO. They're the links that come right below the ads. And inbound marketing is a whole marketing strategy, digital marketing strategy, where on your different digital platforms you can create content and bring users to your website or to your social media platforms in a way that clients reach out to you instead of the other way around. So both are strategies that revolve around creating content and creating strategy without having to pay for ads or to pay for users to seek out your services. And I'm really passionate about both strategies for the reason that companies can use their expertise to try to sell their services and their products through their digital platforms instead of just having to create a bunch of banner ads and hoping people will click on it and buy.
Yeah.
And also, I think that I think it's even more relevant today because people are using the internet and they're using content to look for travel tips and strategies and all sorts of advice online. And so I think the more that us as travel advisors can provide in terms of what we know about our specific niches, the more we can convince users who land on our pages or who land on our sites that we're the ones that they should be going to for that particular service.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the really nice thing too about it is it can be free. You just have to know what to do and how you want to go in that direction, which is always really nice, not spending a ton of money trying to get people.
Exactly.
So yeah, and one question too I have for you is, do you have any kind of a special case study or an example or a time when SEO and inbound marketing helped you and your business grow to acquire new leads?
Sure. Well, just to start off on the subject, if you do visit my site, you'll see we're not completely incorporated and we don't have a super smooth inbound strategy yet. Because as I mentioned, I'm still sort of transitioning into fully being in the travel world. But we have done a few different things on our site, and one example that I think is really interesting and special to us is an example that we have with just one blog post. That wasn't planned at all. We had clients who approached us a couple of years ago for a trip to Brazil, and after they booked and everything, they asked us if there was any way that they would be able to eat at different restaurants that were halal. And Brazil is mostly Christian country, so it was something that we didn't have any knowledge of. But we went after it and we saw that there were, in fact, quite a few halal restaurants around the country because we also have quite a big Arab population in a few different cities. And so we went after this and we put together a list for these clients. And I thought, well, why don't we post this on the site? Because there could be other people who want to travel to Brazil who follow halal diets. And they might be interested in this sort of content. So we posted it, and today it's our top blog post. It's our best access blog post, and there it is on the screen right now, Eating Halal in Brazil. We give a few tips on how to eat while still following a halal diet in different sorts of restaurants around the country. And then we also put together a map on Google with different pinpoints on where there were restaurants that cater specifically to halal diets. And so far there haven't been many direct leads, but for something that we literally just invested 15 minutes in to post onto our site because it's some content that we'd already created for a client, we were able to get just in the past couple of months 2 different leads on our tailor-made form. So it's a simple example of how creating content, when it's curated to what your client's necessities are, in terms of their travel necessities to your country or to whatever your niche is, can go a long way.
Yeah.
And this is something that's very obscure. Like most people who visit Brazil aren't looking particularly for halal restaurants. They're looking for, different places to visit, and they're looking for safety tips and an assortment of different things, which we also try to put onto our blog. But this was just one example of how we listened to our client demand and figured that if that's their demand, then there were probably other people with similar doubts.
Yeah. What's really cool too is that you already had to look for this information. So what you didn't have to do any extra legwork. You just had to put it up for everyone else to see, which is really cool. And that's really unique because I'm sure there's so many people who run in like their clients they get have special interests or unique things they want to do or see, and you have to do a little searching and do that. So that's really cool. And I saw too that we also have where you show here, like on your landing pages, the different places. Can you explain a little bit more about kind of what this means?
Sure. So the landing page is the first page that the client visits, or that the user visits when they reach your website. So as you can see, and the second column is where those visits came from. So our /BR page, which is our home page in Portuguese, has the most visits. And then where they're coming from, the direct is when people actually type in your name, your URL. And then the ones that come from Google, in my case, all of these are organic results. So in this period that I sent you guys, there was no ad investment. So anything that says Google is an organic result.
That's awesome.
And then you'll see there's also the number 4 is the City of São Paulo website. That's where we're based, so we're registered as a travel agency there, and so we get quite a few visits from the City of São Paulo website as well. And then there's Facebook, and those are, with that you can sort of get an idea as to where your clients are coming from. As you can see, most of ours are either Google or direct. Direct can also be, for example, if you share a link and then someone shares it with someone via text message or whatever, that person accesses your site directly. So it's not necessarily just when the person physically types in the entire URL.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And then you also sent, so you sent this to us, and I thought this was so cool. This is where you can actually see what they're doing when they get to certain pages, which is so cool.
Yeah, so this was the path that users followed when they started at the halal restaurant page. So in that period, you can see that we had a little over 200 visits just to that page. And then most people drop off right after, which is normal. Most people will say, okay, that was cool information. I don't need any more information from this company, and that was that. But then some people continue to interact with the website, and that's where the first, second, and third interactions are. And then you can see which pages that they visit after they visit this page. So in most cases, they visited because there was a link inside of the text that led them there, or they accessed it through our menu page. And I think I didn't mention this already, but these print screens, these screenshots that you're showing, they're all from Google Analytics. So if you don't have Google Analytics yet, please do install it on your website. It's a free tool that you can use, and you can see so much data in terms of what people are accessing and what they're interested in on your website, which is also really interesting, for example, in creating new content. So if you see that people are interacting with the page or they're not interacting, you do have a big majority that are dropping off, then maybe you're not giving them an opportunity to further navigate on your site. So maybe you're getting lots of access to a page, but that page isn't bringing you any leads, or that page isn't bringing you any contacts. It's probably because there is no link to your contact page, or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that's a good point too, is yeah, Google Analytics, anyone on here can jump onto Google Analytics right after this webinar, and you just need to hook up your website, and then, yeah, and you can see all of this. I mean, it is really telling stuff. It's cool that you can, check all that out, or really follow what they're doing, and all that. So that's cool. So it kind of brings us into our next thing. We kind of already just started talking about that, but how does a travel agent start with inbound marketing and SEO? What actions can they make today? So besides, we already said Google Analytics should do that, but what are some other things that they can do?
Well, I think there are two main things that we can talk about here. First is to sort of piggyback on what we were just talking about in terms of creating content. As you mentioned, the content that I put together for that particular blog post, it was something that I already had, and something that we as travel advisors already do, right? We go above and beyond to detail itineraries and try to predict our clients' expectations and their difficulties, and we'll send all of that information to them. So most of us already have a lot of content on hand, and we already have a lot of questions that our clients ask us. So if we look at different questions that we get on contact forms, or just questions that our clients have along the way, so from planning to booking, we'll get sometimes a lot of the same questions. So to try to keep all of that in mind when you're developing content for your website or for your social media, because these are actual doubts that people need resolved. And this is something that you can help with your expertise. So just try to keep that in mind when you're thinking about developing an SEO or an inbound marketing strategy. And also try to identify who your client actually is. And you do this by identifying client personas. So identifying your client persona is pretty much the first step that you would have in inbound marketing. In inbound marketing, in order for you to develop content that's going to bring people to your site, you need to develop something that your potential client is going to want to read, right? So in order for you to develop something that your potential client is going to want to read or access or watch, you need to understand what their interests are, who they are, and just really try to get into their brains in order to write for them, or to develop a video for them, or to develop any sort of content for them. And we do this by developing personas, which are, it's like a semi-fictitious character who would essentially be your ideal customer. Some companies will have several personas. We have 3 currently who we work with. So content will have to be created for each of them in order to sort of get the message across to all of your prospective clients. These can be created based on past clients, who are the easiest to work with, who are the most lucrative, because those are always our favorite clients, right? The ones who are easy and who bring us the most money. And in our case, since we do work with sustainable travel as well, which were the clients who were really aligned with our company's mission, who really cared about what we were doing. A lot of people ask me, well, my company's new, I don't have any past clients, so I don't really know where to start there. In that case, you can try to think of who you want your client to be. And this doesn't mean that this is going to be your client forever. Personas change. We've had our personas change. When I started the company, I had an idea as to who my client would be. And then once we started getting bookings, I started to realize that our client was really someone else. So it's something that can change, but in order for you to start developing content, it's good to have this person in mind, because then it'll be easier to create content that's catered to this person, and that you can imagine them reading and finding interesting. So you can see on the screen share right now one of our personas. I try to follow the traditional inbound route, where you give the person a name, information about their family, their likes, their dislikes, their passions, challenges, and also, what products or services do you offer that most identify with this person. You'll be getting a handout that has a list of questions for you to develop your persona. And this one in particular, we made on a website called Extensio. And you can just fill in the information that's on your worksheet onto the Extensio form, and it'll generate a persona for you. And then my suggestion is, especially if you're getting started with this and you're not really familiar with the concept of writing for a persona, create this persona in Extensio that's beautiful, print it out, hang it over your computer for when you're writing your content, and look at it and be like, so Jane, what do you want to know about Brazil, or what do you want to know about whatever your company is about? And it really makes things so much easier. Once you've developed your persona, you know which destinations they're most likely to visit, what kind of questions they're most likely to have for travel, or, for example, or what kind of media they're more likely to want to access. So we have personas who prefer video, but we also have a persona who prefers to read. So it's important that you have both video and written content. For people who have much younger personas, you're going to want lots of imagery, and you're going to want lots of video, and you're going to want content that interacts and engages the client quite a bit. So really try, once you have this person in mind, it just makes it so much easier to have your content flow and for you to develop a strategy to bring this client to you.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense. And actually, we've done this at Travefy too before, where we, like if, we're trying to promote something, or I feel like we did it maybe like a year and a half ago, because it's always fun to do too. Like you get to pick out, your ideal, who would be the person you're catering to, because it really does help bring it all together. And I have a couple slides here. So I have the Jane Smith. So this is one. And then I was also bringing up what it's going to look like for that free worksheet. So after this, everyone, you'll get that email after this, and it'll have a link where you can download this. So here's what you'll be seeing, that free worksheet. So it's pretty easy. I mean, what you've put together, Pauline, is like really easy. You just put in those.
Yeah, the worksheet is really so you can get an idea and start to think of ideas as to who your persona might be. And it's, as you mentioned, you did it as a company, and that's really interesting too. I've done this in classrooms, and everyone just gets so excited, and they start creating stories about the person and their past and their drama. And it's just a really fun exercise to do as a team as well.
It is, yeah. We've a little unrelated, but really funny. One time we did what are we if we were an animal? If Travefy was an animal, like what would it be? So it's kind of like the same thing. Like it is really fun. You can start thinking, and it also helps with building your brand too. So you mentioned like when you're first when you're first getting started, and you might not necessarily know, well, what clients have I had? I haven't really had any. That's okay. You actually can start from the ground up and build who you want that to be. And then, like you mentioned, it could change. Like your personas might definitely change too.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And then one last question I had for you on this is the website that they go to. So this website, and I linked it up at the top, so if anyone wants to jot that down, you can get it. But once they fill out that worksheet, they can come here and upload it. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's also a link in the worksheet where they go directly to the persona creator.
Perfect. That's cool. I didn't even know anything like this existed. This looks like a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a good graphic team, then go ahead, make something that's more tailored towards your company. But this is just a really easy tool for you to get something that looks good and that's easy to read.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I like that. And I'm sure we'll have some questions. I know we'll come back to personas as well in there. But another question that I had though, just to keep it flowing, is I know one thing that a lot of people always ask is social media. So, because obviously that's a great tool to get leads. So what are your favorite ways to utilize social media for sending those new leads to your website?
I think First is to try to figure out, once you do your persona exercise, figure out where your persona is, and try to invest in those tools and in those platforms. There's really no point in you being on a social media platform where the person who you're selling to isn't engaging in. So, for example, we don't really use Twitter so much because our persona usually doesn't use Twitter, especially when it comes to travel planning. But for some companies, Twitter is essential. So just really try to figure out where your persona is before you jump into social media. One way that I find interesting to interact with prospective clients is to not only post things on our pages, but try to interact with our users where they are and where they're asking questions. So maybe something like joining Facebook groups where your personas are is a great way for you to use social media inbound, because you can keep an eye on what people are asking or what people are curious about. And there you can interact with them, answering, real questions they may have, either in text format or sharing links to your site which have their answers. And this way you're not just sharing your content on your own page, you're actually communicating with prospective audiences. The same goes with following specific hashtags on Instagram or on Twitter, or different searches on Pinterest or wherever people are asking questions. And speaking of Pinterest, Pinterest for travel is a great tool for getting traffic to your site, because you can create boards with images that link back to your website. So if you do have a persona who's on Pinterest, which in our industry people usually are, because they use it quite a bit for travel inspiration, leading people back to your blog posts or even to certain landing pages or product pages on your site. It's a great tool for you to try to share your content and getting people to interact with you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the good thing is you've mentioned this, multiple times already, but it is the great thing about the travel industry is so many people are searching for questions that's related to travel, that it's easy to jump in and answer, or, if you have those blog posts ready, like, hey, you check this out, and so that's really cool. It's makes it a little nicer. And kind of on that too, so you mentioned you so Pinterest is really great to use. Twitter, you have found that doesn't really match with personas, but are there any other tools that you like using? So besides like social media channels, is there anything that you use that kind of helps generate those leads for social media and outside of social media?
Sure. One thing that is essential in an inbound marketing strategy. So we haven't really gone into the whole strategy, but essentially in inbound marketing, we try to reach clients in 3 different parts of their journey, or customers in 3 different parts of their journey. So first, we need to attract users, and users are usually either exploring, so they're not really sure what they're looking for, and they're just kind of after information about whatever. So using my example, I'm looking for a place to travel next summer. Consideration is sort of the middle ground, where they're like, all right, maybe I already have a country I want to visit, but I don't know what I want to do there yet. And then finally, there's the decision phase, where they're ready to book. And a lot of times as marketers, we'll try to lead our clients directly to that decision phase when they're not even there yet. So using different tools that we can use to reach these clients on these different fronts is what I've been talking about quite a bit, is creating blog posts that are educational to try to get them at that first stage. Oh, I'm considering a place to visit this summer. So what can you talk about different destinations that you can offer that are perfect destinations for them to visit this summer? And then once you get that person on your site, try to create a different offer, or try to create something through a landing page where you can get their email accounts or find a way to interact with them. And this can be through a downloadable PDF. It can be through something like what we're doing right now, which is the free webinar for travel professionals. So if someone isn't a Travefy client yet, maybe they came across this webinar and they'll look more into the company afterwards. And after you have their email, try to interact with them based on that initial interest. So if they came here through this webinar, then you're going to keep sending them information for other webinars. And if they keep coming, you might want to start sending them emails with the offers to sign up for Travefy for a discount or to offer a demo or what have you. So email is really important. It's one of the biggest ways to convert. And it really all starts with having that offer on your site, that sort of hook to get the person reeled in and to get them interacting with your brand. So email marketing is essential. And with inbound marketing, you can use an assortment of tools to automate that process and to automate it in a way where the user will only have access to information that's interesting to them. So if a person shows interest in one country, and you sell several countries, then you can keep sending information through to them that's specific to that country and not necessarily to the others that they didn't show any interest in, because that usually ends up leading to unsubscribes. So there are a bunch of different inbound marketing tools that you can use. The most famous one is HubSpot. And it's great as an inbound marketing tool as a whole, but you can also use things like MailChimp. If you already have MailChimp, they have automation features that can help you bring this sort of funnel, this sort of email funnel, which we call nutrition. Different CRMs have them. There are an assortment of tools that have this, and they give them different names. Most people call it marketing automation, but in inbound, it's not super automated, and that you need to be very careful to curate the content that's specific to that persona. What we do, HubSpot, for example, is a great tool, but it's not in our budget since we're a very small agency. I use a combination of email automation through a newsletter service called MailerLite, which is free and has a WordPress integration. Our site is on WordPress. For organizing our content, so we plan our content on Asana, and just for overall travel projects. For our scheduling Instagram posts, we use Later. And another really good tool for scheduling posts on different platforms is Buffer. And of course, just plain old Excel. Especially when it comes to planning and having everyone access the content. We just use plain old Excel on Google Suite. I'm sorry. For now, we only use Travefy to send proposals and itineraries to clients, but we're starting also to create PDFs to create this sort of offer that I'm talking about, so people can go onto our site, and then if they reach a sample itinerary page and they find that sample itinerary page really cool, they can download it and then just use that for their travel.
That's so awesome.
If they download it and they see that it's too complicated to plan on their own, then they come find us.
That's what you have to do. So you have to make it look like they're going to need you. Like, this is awesome and cool, but I need you. So I like that.
Exactly.
Smart. Yeah.
And Travefy is great for that. Just a little plug. Because the PDFs come out really nice. I'm not getting paid for this, I promise.
And the other thing too that I wanted to pull up here, I'm going to share it now, is that free worksheet that you're sharing with everybody has the Excel. So you mentioned use, good old Excel, always reliable.
Yeah.
So here's kind of an example of what everyone on here is getting.
Yeah, so you're all getting a preview of our content for this month on social media. I developed this worksheet, our social media consultant developed this worksheet, and I added a couple more elements to make it more objective in terms of targeting our persona. and lead generation. So here we have columns for the dates that we're posting, the different themes for the post in particular, who the persona is. In some cases, you can see it's all personas. In some cases, you can see it's 2 different personas. So it doesn't mean that when we talk about speaking to a persona, it doesn't mean that you need to isolate that persona in each of your posts. So you'll see that there's a mix. We also try to define our objectives for each post. So what do we want out of this post? Do we want people to come to our website? Is it really just a branding thing? Do we really just want likes, which we call vanity metrics? We try to figure out where the person is going to be on their journey, which I mentioned was exploration, consideration, decision. And then after we have all of this, it makes it so much easier for us to develop the actual content of the social media post and to see which image is going to fit best with it or which video is going to fit best with it. So it looks time consuming, it is, but it's also really important to get the right message across and not just have like, oh, look at how pretty it is where we are sort of post, because really what's the point in that photo? If you have a point, then great. But if you don't, then where's the commercial intent in posting something on your site's social media platforms?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It makes it easy, and the nice thing too is that you can see here that it's definitely, you have to think it through, but it's also it's mindful. I guess if that's what I'm looking for, that's really nice, is you've really thought through what you're sharing. You're not just like, oh, we need to put something up this week, put anything up. It's like you're really being thoughtful on what's going up, which is really cool as well too. So kind of on that, bringing us into our last question, and then we'll start asking some questions here too. Is there anything else that maybe we haven't covered yet, or any final thoughts that you have that maybe we haven't said yet?
I think one thing that when I teach in this subject, a lot of students will finish class and they'll be like, how am I going to find time to do all of this? And as a business owner myself, and speaking with other business owners, we, especially small business owners, we usually can't hire someone to do the legwork for us, to create all this content for us. Or, even if we can, we're really attached to our content and to our branding. And so one thing that I really want to drive home is, start with the persona. And if you can't hire someone to do the legwork for you, just use some of the content you already have. As travel advisors, we all create itineraries for our clients. We all do so much research to make our service much more valuable than someone who's just planning online or doing research on their own, because we know the places we visit, and we're passionate about the kind of work that we're doing. So I know that all of you already have content somewhere. So try recycling that and turning that into content for you to post on your site initially. You don't have to develop a strategy initially, because that takes time to take what you have already. So so if you have an itinerary, try to create a generic, like 72 hours in a certain destination, based on 3 days that you plan for a client in a certain destination, or pull up a list of restaurant recommendations that you've already made for a client and turn that into a blog post. Different things like that we can already turn into content, and start sharing this on where you think your personas may be, on your LinkedIn page, on your business's social media profiles, and set up analytics, like we've already mentioned. Once you start to see on analytics that you're getting visits and you might possibly start getting leads from this, I think that this is a huge motivator in finally settling down and being like, all right, I think I'm going to start planning a strategy for my content and planning a strategy to try to attract leads more organically. So that's just I want that to be the biggest takeaway. Just start with whatever you have and go for it.
Yeah, no, and that is so true, because I know, especially, whether you're building a business busy or you're, one one person shop, or, just so many different scenarios, or even if you're been in the industry forever. I mean, it does, like, it can be overwhelming, but you're so right that once you start seeing things happen, you'll be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that again. Or, if someone, oh,
Yeah.
I found you because of this, and which is really cool. And then, yeah, it's so true, and all that. And I had one thing too that you had sent me, and I made a slide for it because I thought it was really cool. I personally loved it too. Is that you put like all of your favorite places to get inspiration from, and like read more about this as well. So, and I kind of put it based on the different topics. So I don't know if you kind of want to talk about this, but I thought this might be really helpful to share for people because it is a great place to go and get more resources too.
Sure. The first set of links is just for if you're more interested in learning about different digital marketing strategies, especially related to SEO and content marketing and inbound marketing. So those sites are all sites that I have on my blog feed, and that I tend to follow for trends or even just tips. And then the others is more also as advice for you to follow for inspiration. So in our case, we work with quite a bit of luxury travel, lots of green travel, and lots of family travel. So I follow these sites as well to see, because these are sites that my personas read. I try to follow them to see what interests this particular audience and see if I can create something that's based on what inspires me from these posts and bring them to my website or to my content, or even to the sample itineraries that we build, or destinations that we have in Brazil that maybe I haven't been to or I don't have products in yet. So it's really more for you to get an idea as to different strategies that you can use to just generate inspiration, I guess, for your own strategies.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, I thought when you shared all this, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I started following some of these too. Like, I know most of these, I believe, like HubSpot obviously does. They have the subscription, so you can sign up for their newsletters, and that's
Mm-hmm.
totally free. And that's really nice too. I love getting those because sometimes I just don't have, I'm overwhelmed and don't have time, and I just delete it. But then they're constantly sending you stuff that sometimes it just totally catches your eye and you learn something new really quickly, which
Yeah.
is really cool too. But
Yeah, exactly. And the
yeah,
same with the other blogs. Most of the other blogs, especially the travel blogs, they'll have newsletters too.
mhm.
And you can even sign up for those newsletters to use them as inspiration for your own newsletters.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, that's a good point. If anyone on here is kind of like, I don't know where to begin, then you can just see what other people are doing, or what they're doing in there. And on that, I do have some questions that are kind of about some of these that we've been getting in through one. One of them is, and I think you ended up saying this too, is what software did you use to create the website? So like your landing page example, or when you were talking about landing pages, what do you use for that?
So we use, our site is on WordPress. So on WordPress, there are several different plugins that you can use, that you can purchase. There's one that's called Landing Pages for WordPress. I think it's about $20, but it's just a one-time fee, and you can use that for whenever. We use MailerLite for our emails, and they have a landing page feature as well. So you can develop a landing page, and then it automatic, like whatever you generate from that landing page goes directly to your mailing list. So that just makes things easier for us. But there's, in terms of landing page software, there's also, you can use things like HubSpot, which have the complete package. Some CRMs even today have landing pages or marketing units, so you can try to see, depending on what you're using for a CRM now as well. There are things like, there's a site called Optimizely that does landing pages, and they have a monthly fee, and they're very good. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know MailChimp. I think they started doing.
MailChimp does landing pages Yeah. So most email marketing tools will have a landing page feature function. Sometimes you won't be able to use your own URL for that landing page, depending on the plan that you have or whatever. So the person will have to go off of your site, but then you just have to make sure that you create a link that where they open it in a new window. So then you don't lose that visit either, in case they don't actually sign up.
Yeah, that's a good one too, is when you can put in open in a new link. So that's one thing. Is that something you would recommend on, even like if you're writing a blog post and you wanted to link to another blog post that you have, would you recommend always putting that it's going to take you off? It'll open a new tab for you basically.
I would do that if the link is in the middle of the post. So if you're writing something and you want to reference another blog post, or if you want to reference one of your products and it's right in the middle of the post, then I would do that. But if it's at the very bottom, or if it's like a contact page at the very bottom, like contact us for more information on this sort of thing, or if you have like the related blog posts, then I would keep it to load on the same page, because then you'll just have the person continue navigating your website in a more in a smoother sort of transition. But if they're in the middle of the post, maybe they want to keep reading that post and then just want to open the other window for later. So then I would do that if it's in the middle of a post or a page.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense on there. And one person asked too is, do we get the free worksheet? And yes, we will. We're going to send it out after this, so you'll definitely have that. Someone else asked about slides, so I don't have them in the email that you're going to get after this. So feel free to email us if you did want, these slides and stuff. I can get you this to you and get those screen grabs to you that you need. Which is really good. And then, so we got a really cool question here too is, do you or have you used LinkedIn based on identifying an ideal persona? And if so, how could that be used most effectively?
I personally do not use LinkedIn much for my own business, because we're more of a B2C company, and we don't. I figured my client isn't going to be planning their vacation while on LinkedIn. But for some people, it might make sense. I mean, if you work in business travel, for example, someone could be on LinkedIn and thinking about an upcoming business trip. Or if you work in a specific destination that's really big for business travel or that sort of thing. So I think that it's a good tool for that sort of thing. And also, if you want to get yourself out there in terms of speaking or at different events to talk about your particular niche or your particular subject, your particular agency's subject matter. So for example, if I want to get on more panels or webinars like this, I would definitely share on our LinkedIn to show that, we're a company that specializes not only in this sort of travel, but also in travel marketing. So I would use LinkedIn more on that end, but I also think that if you're not sure whether or not your persona is or isn't on LinkedIn, I would give it a trial run. I would start posting things on LinkedIn and for the persona that you have in mind, and see if that bites. If you have, the content ready, or if you have something that you think would be valuable to a LinkedIn audience, then I think that it's totally valid to try to start developing content there. And LinkedIn does have the option for you to create blog posts inside of LinkedIn. My suggestion there would be for you to do sort of like a snippet on LinkedIn, and then from that post that you start on LinkedIn, link to your website where you have like a full post. Because that way the person can also go directly to, it gives the person a reason to want to see more about your business.
That's smart. See, that's why we need you here today. All those little juicy little nuggets of information. That's really smart. So that's a good idea, where you can just kind of put the snippet on there and then they can come off.
Yeah, and then read more on my website. Same with sites like Medium, for example.
Oh, true. Yeah. Medium too. Yeah, exactly. Or even, would you recommend that for Facebook, like where you could almost make a post and obviously you don't want to make it too long because people might, because it's a
Yeah,
quick scroll through app, but
yeah. Yeah, I would totally do that for Facebook too. Maybe start talking about the subject, or we recently researched all the best restaurants in blah, blah, blah city. So here are the top three. Check out the rest on our blog link or whatever.
That's really cool. I would definitely click that. And I like how you mentioned too, how you're like, we recently, researched these because you're the expert. So as like a consumer, because I would be coming from the consumer side, I'd be like, oh wow, I'm totally going to see what they said because they know what they're doing. So this is like
Yeah,
high quality piece. That's smart too, to
yeah.
kind of.
Same when you visit different places.
Mhm.
When you do like a fam tour or whatever, when you go to visit the place, and you can do a write up afterwards and say, we were just at this destination. Here are our top tips, for traveling there in such and such month or whatever.
Yeah, and same thing with fam trips too. I mean, when a lot of travel advisors go on those, I mean, that's the perfect opportunity to share that information, maybe put it in a blog post and bring it all together, because I'm
Hmm.
sure most people share it on social media, but maybe at the end bring it all together and show that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people will just post things on Instagram, but then that content sort of disappears after a while, or it's not easily found afterwards.
Mhm.
So if you have that on Instagram and in a blog post, then you can bring people in from all sorts of
Yeah,
media.
yeah, it keeps them coming, which is really
Yeah.
cool. I have another question here too. Is a question from Ariel asks, with the GDPR, you will have to keep copies of consent for your mailers. So I know that still is kind of, it still is kind of new. So do you have any kind of tips on how to make sure you're doing everything correctly with GDPR?
A lot of the mail services now will come with an option for you to select GDPR friendly forms. So that's an idea. I know MailChimp does it. The one that we use, MailerLite, they also have it. So you create your form and they'll ask, do you want this to be GDPR friendly? Or it's not friendly, it's another word, but I forget. And then it'll create the form with the link to the GDPR contract already. And the person can select if they want to receive marketing forms or not. And then that's all kept inside of the mailing system.
Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, that is a nice.
It's practical, and I'm assuming if they have that feature, then they're doing it the right way. And
Yeah.
since that is the business of these platforms, then I'm assuming that would be the smartest way to go.
Yep, that's true. And we only have time for a couple more questions here, but I'll do a couple of like maybe two more questions here. There was one that was really, really interesting from Carol is curious about the idea of giving potential clients a Travefy itinerary. Does seem dicey, but I get the idea that it may be too complex for them to plan on their own. So do you tweak the itinerary with hotels or pricing, or can they really see everything? So like, are you including pricing or are you keeping it more basic and simple?
I keep it more basic. So what we do for our sample itineraries is on our site, we'll have, for example, these are the destinations you'll visit. This is an idea of some of the activities you'll do. Download the full itinerary, and then once they have the full itinerary, they can see what their day-to-day will look like, and they'll get some hotel options, and then at the very end we'll give them a starting at price. So you can have all of this starting at such and such a price depending on the season, et cetera, et cetera. This is only a sample itinerary, and we can cater this to your needs, your travel needs, since we do mostly tailor-made. So we do this more to show people like these are the kinds of destinations that you can visit in Brazil, and these are the activities that you can have while you're in these destinations. So I won't give them like hotel prices exactly, and we're pretty confident in our rates. We have very good partnerships, so we're pretty confident that if they were to do all the legwork to get all the information from all the providers that we have on there. We usually don't give provider names either. We'll just say, this is the experience that you're going to have. And we work with vetted providers and all that sort of stuff. We'll mention all that. We're pretty confident that, if they can get to that price, it's probably not going to be the same experience, and they probably won't be our potential client anyway. But at least we're helping someone navigate their visit to Brazil. And if they are meant to be our customer, then they will come. I feel like a lot of people are very wary in giving out too much information and thinking that, that's going to devalue their work as a travel advisor. But I feel that clients find it's the opposite, that the more information you give, the more transparent you are about your knowledge and of your niche or your destination, the more they're willing to rely on you for their trips.
That's true. And yeah, and that's definitely something we see too at Travefy with creating proposals and sending those out and kind of being careful, that they're not going to take all of your work and, run. So those are good points in there. So one question here, the last one, and this is just a really important one to kind of clear up just in case if anyone else was wondering something this, but Connie asked, with your persona, are they actually like authoring your blog posts, or are you just writing them, or are you just writing with them in mind?
We're writing with them in mind. We will sometimes, for example, ask for clients to give us their opinions on trips that they've had and ask if we can publish that. But most of the time we're just writing with them in mind.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, it looks like we're coming right up on time here. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, this is great. Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I swear, like, even I'm learning, it's very interesting stuff. And I know that we could talk about this for hours and hours, about inbound marketing and using SEO. But the good thing too is I think it's really cool how much that the worksheet and just how much, sources that you've provided today that people can just really run with it now. And of course, if anyone does have questions, feel free. There'll be that email that you'll get probably within an hour, and reply back to that if you do have any follow-up questions, and we can try to get you answers to that and get the resources to you if you missed anything along with that recording. But other than that, that is, that's all the time. I really seriously wish we could keep talking because there's so much to cover, and you're just so knowledgeable and everything. So I just want to thank you so much again, for taking time out and, sharing all of that with everybody.
Thank you again for having me, and I'm very happy that people have enjoyed it. And if people do they send you follow-up questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, you heard that. Let us know, if anyone on here does have any questions, or you start digging through later this evening or this weekend and you're like, how do I go about this? Feel free, because I know it's the one thing that I've noticed about it is that it seems overwhelming. And then when you start slowly biting off small chunks at a time, it's kind of like, oh no, this is easy. That's why the worksheet's really nice. Just fill that out and then go from there. Go to the next step and the next step. So really cool.
Yeah, just whatever you do, get started with developing your own content, and you'll see it'll do great things for your business.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's really cool. Thank you so much again, and thanks everyone too for joining us here today. Follow up if there's any questions, if you need any of this information we've talked about. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day and week as well, and hopefully everywhere. I know it's warm for you in Brazil, but I know a lot.
Yeah,
it's not been very fun. So
it's very warm. So if anybody wants to come to Brazil, also feel free to contact me.
I might be down there soon if this weather keeps up. Well, thanks again, and thanks everyone. See ya.
Bye.